Hello everyone. I hope this New Year's bring you good health, wealth and happiness. Friends, welcome to CareersTalk. I'm Suran Sharma, an agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we are lucky to have Hemanth Khati with us. He's a professional Scrum trainer, enterprise agile coach, and had led various agile transformations for many clients across the geographies in TCS. He's here to help us with some tough situational and behavioral Scrum Master interview questions. But friends, before we start, if you are new here, make sure to subscribe. And if you like the content, which I'm sure you will, hit that like button. So without further delay, let's get started. Welcome, Hemant, and thank you for joining us today. Hemant,
Thank you, Sunan. Thank you.
so why don't you tell us about yourself in a brief, and then we'll start our Q&A session, Hemant.
Sure. So, guys, I'm Hemanth Khati. I'm an enterprise agile coach, a professional Scrum trainer, and I'm doing agile Scrum for last 19 or so years. So, a pretty long time, I will say. And most of my IT career, that's what I'm doing. And as Sunan said, I have done some transformations. I have taught a lot of people on professional Scrum. So, I think that's good enough. Let us get started.
Thank you, Hemant. Okay, so let's start with then our Q&A. So the very first one is let's assume that you have joined an organization to lead an agile transformation,
Mhm.
but that C-suite is not interested in the actual transformation. They just want some quick PR boost. So they just want some superficial changes. So how do you navigate this situation and drive the meaningful, lasting change in the organizational agile practices? So it's a little tricky one. I'm sure like you might have seen this kind of situation in your real life as well with the multiple clients. So what's your take on that, Hemant?
Uh, See, this is not something which I think anybody who has done some transformation work can really relate to this situation. Because in most companies, or if I should not say most, but many companies, the transformation trigger is many times to catch up with their peers. Because the company you are competing with or the other companies in the marketplace are doing agile. You hear some good stories that they are getting success. Maybe one of the products you are trying to get through the door, somebody else does it before you. And when you try to just probe a little bit, you hear that they are doing something called agile. Of course, now everybody knows about agile, but that's how a lot of companies actually started with it, because they heard stories. And then the first thing, and of course sometimes when the transformation is successful, you don't hear the voices of the real people on the ground. You might hear the leaders talking about it, the CIOs. Some of them might be on the cover of some magazines. Yeah, that is noticed by the management. And of course, everybody wants also to be in the limelight, get recognition, and that can also be one of the major triggers for a transformation. But I think it doesn't matter how the transformation journey gets started, because if you are being uh, taken in as a coach, as a transformation coach, or as a scrum master, it doesn't matter, to participate in the transformation. Then the important thing is that you get the customer who is trying to get this agile transformation done the value they deserve. Many times they are not aware of it, because when we are talking about agile transformation, then there are certain stereotypes which are associated with it. So I see in many companies, especially I think a lot of your audience might be working in offshore based IT companies, and they might be getting these customer visits from on-site customers visiting. There is always this agenda item that we are to get the customer in an agile space or in an agile office. Now, if you try to get that customer in an agile office where there is no visual signs of agility, the customer and the person who has got the customer into your office will be, you know, a bit disappointed, I'll say, because the agility is associated with certain visual signs. And I don't really blame people for that, because that's what they see, that's what they hear, and that's what they know. So when you are doing it, now the coming back to your question, it doesn't matter what the trigger is. Maybe the customer or whoever is the sponsor, they have their own reasons for trying to do the transformation. They want to look good, they want to go up. Everybody wants to go up, there is nothing wrong in it. But the important thing is that as a person on the ground, as a scrum master, as an agile coach, it's your job to educate them that there is much more to it than just visuals. And everybody, the people in the management are smart people, that's why they rise up. And once you could convince them what is possible with agility, in my experience, most of them just grab the opportunity. Nobody will say, okay, now we have the walls and we have the boards and we have nice pictures and yeah, let us stop. That generally doesn't happen. Only thing is you have to stand up, you have to tell people what are possibilities for this, what can be achieved. And the important thing is that just don't talk about it, show it with results. The results actually will speak for you. What I have seen in many situations is that the consulting company will come in, and if you are too much taking orders or too much to be on the side of the management, then you might get into the situation you are referring to. I think it's somebody said this, I don't remember exactly who, but they said that the person who said this was agile coach. He said, I only consider myself a successful coach if I have a strained relationship with my sponsor. If my sponsor is very happy with me, probably I'm not doing the right thing. There has to be some kind of tension. If you listen to everything what your sponsor is saying, what your management is saying, you probably not doing enough. You have to stretch it a little bit, show them what is possible, show them what is maybe tough but needs to be done. And I think then only they will appreciate once they see the result, because result is your best friend. Once people see value on the ground, most probably they will listen to you. No amount of theory or stuff from the books will convince people, but a good result will convince them very easily. So that's what you should do. So I have seen that, just to coming back to real life, that's how it starts. Everybody will say, okay guys, I don't care, let us get this scrum or agile or safe, whatever you are doing, get started. Let us get people into some boxes, teams, squads, yeah, and then get rolling, so that I can tell my management that we are done with whatever wave one or whatever your terminology is. But if you tell them, guys, let us measure how are we doing, let us do a baseline, and then show after a quarter that you are doing much better, everybody will have ears for you. That's my advice, that go with results. Don't just tell people passages from the book. Generally that won't take you very far.
True. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that, Hemanth. Great. Okay. So, shall we move on to the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, other one is again a kind of situational question. So let's assume that one of your team member, consistently dominating the discussion during the sprint planning, or let's say retrospective, or let's say daily scrum calls. So that results that other people are disengaged and they feel left. So how do you balance these kind of strong personalities or individual contribution while adopting a collaborative team environment? So again, yeah, take.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's a very common situation most coaches and scrum master will encounter day to day. So there are two ways to do things. I think all coaches or trainers or scrum masters, one aspect of it, and even if you go to the classical agile theory, you read the scrum guide, it will also tell you the same. That your one of your job is to create a very collaborative team, self-managed team. And how do you do that? Yeah, you tell people about scrum values. Of course, that's the training part. Yeah, and I think that is the easy part. You can tell people to be collaborative, open, transparent. Yeah, and people will generally listen to you and they will agree to you. I have not seen one instance where after teaching these scrum values, anybody said, no, I don't agree with these values. There is nothing to not to agree with, right? It's kind of self-evident. It looks very obvious. And as you know, it was so obvious that initially the creators of Scrum thought it's not worth even mentioning it. Yeah, why mention it? Everybody knows about it. Then what is the point in telling it again? But then they realized that maybe it's worth telling, because even though everybody knows about it, they forget it quickly, right? Same thing, you will see that just teaching things won't doesn't mean that people will, directly act on it. Like if you just simple example from our daily lives, I think you won't find one person who say that lying is good. Everybody knows that lying is not good, and one should always tell the truth. That's what we are raised with. Those are the values everybody is raised with. But people still tell lies, isn't it? Why do they do that? Why? Because they don't know about it. Of course they know, but people still do it, right? So knowing something and doing it, they are two different things. So I think we should go back not only to Scrum but to some basics, of behavioral science. That how do you change your habits? How do you be a different person, right? So just by telling someone that don't you one approach, of course, is a direct approach, that you have a one-on-one with this person, tell him or her that maybe, yeah, they should watch out, they are dominating the discussion too much. I can tell you for sure, the person will mostly agree with you, and they will say, okay, I will do better. And they will do better for a day or two. Okay. After 2 days, it vanishes from their memory. They are back to square one. They will again keep doing it. So just telling it, of course, that doesn't mean that you stop telling them. You should keep telling them, of course, because repetition always helps. If you start repeating things, again and again, again and again, after a while, they sink in. Only how much time it takes for something to sink in, we don't know. It depends person to person. Some people might change quickly, some won't. But the other thing which you have is active involvement in the discussion. And this is not, see, there is one misconception. Of course, daily Scrum is not a good example, because we know that you are not supposed to be there as a Scrum Master. Maybe if you are a coach, you can be there, but you should not meddle too much, because you are basically interfering with the self management of the team. So you don't want to interfere too much. Maybe that's not a good example. But you can be at other events, at other places, when you see this behavior, and you actively start managing, not managing, maybe not the good word, facilitating the event. Okay. And how do you facilitate? Facilitation doesn't mean that you give mic to everybody and let them speak. That's not very efficient, because you giving equal time to people, of course, sometimes it is useful, but you might not get the outcome you are looking for. The best thing is to first look at the intended outcome of an event. Okay, Scrum event or otherwise. That can also be true for any meeting, not only for Scrum meetings. Yeah, as a rule, if you are having an event, a meeting, you should know what's the agenda. It's a good idea to publish the agenda, tell people what to expect, tell them what is expected of them, what is the intended outcome. Make it clear. So if people who are not required, maybe don't invite them, or get into the habit of educating your team not to show up for meetings where they have nothing to contribute to. Okay, if they have nothing to say and nothing to learn, probably they should not be there. That is one. So that's a behavioral thing which you can cultivate in your team. But of course, telling them, teaching them, mentioning it all the time, repeating it again and again. That is one. Other is you can use some of the other techniques, like for example, some things like liberating structures. So some of your audience members might know, because if they have done some Scrum trainings, they will see the liberating structures in action. I use it extensively in my Scrum trainings. So what these are? These are structural ways to ensure that people have a say in a discussion. So some of it, probably some of you know, the famous ones like 1 to 4, where you just ask everybody to write their input first, then you take two people, ask them to discuss with each other, then you increase the group to 4, have them discussion with each other. That will ensure that everybody has a voice. Okay. And I think it's also a good idea, if you have such dominant people in your team, to avoid open discussions to begin with. Of course, at some point you need to have a discussion, right? But don't create open discussion. Don't say, guys, this is the problem, how do we solve it? And then you know what will happen. The person who is most dominant, probably he will eat all the time, get his ideas imposed on others. And many times people who are too sensitive, they actually don't resist these ideas, or they find it too much work to go against this person, shut him down or her down. They just keep quiet. But use these things like liberating structures, get the input of people structurally, and then you will see that everybody's heard, everybody's ideas are heard. So three things, as I said, again to repeat, you can focus on behaviors, focus on scrum values, remind people of it, and introduce structures which will ensure that everybody's voice is heard. You have to do all the three all the time. It's not either or.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks, Hemant, for that elaborated answer. Great. Okay, so let's move on. The next one is related with the product backlog refinement. So
Mhm.
let's assume that the PO is not available for backlog refinement, and that is causing delay in our sprint planning. So how do you ensure that the backlog readiness and how to maintain a smooth planning, despite the product owner not available? So yeah, that's a kind of tricky situation. So how do you deal with this kind of situations?
Yeah, I think you can do something about it, but it can't be that you have a product owner who is almost, absent all the time, and you can still manage. I don't think that's a ideal situation or a situation where you want to be, right? Because product owner role exists for a reason. You need the product owner to guide you about the content, to guide, that I don't have to tell your audience. They are smart people, they know why product owner exists. So if product owner is not there, you have no way to know the wheel of the business, right? So it becomes very difficult to manage without. You can make assumptions, of course, that's what probably most people will do. Or you have somebody who understands the domain, a business analyst or somebody like that, who can take the place of the product owner and do some of it, right? But there are still things which only a true product owner can actually help you with. You can't really completely get rid of the product owner's responsibility on your own by replacing the product owner with some other person. But there is a fundamental problem here which I see in many places. The thing is that there are things which you can, because see, why, first we have to understand why generally product owners are not available. And believe me, this is a very common problem. Yeah, you will see it in most companies, that product owners availability is an issue. And why it happens, first we have to start from the start. So as we saw, that there is a trigger for transformation, then people start thinking about agile transformation. They hire maybe a consultancy firm who tell them, who educate them. Then they see, okay, there is this role called product owner. And of course, they are also told that this person has to come from business. Now, when you start a transformation, there is already some extra expense because you're hiring some people, some consultants, some agile people, then you have roles. Some of it you can fill internally because some of your team members can take up roles like scrum master. But for product owner, you need somebody from business because that's what is being asked. Now, business generally in most companies has limited capacity, right? Because you don't need a lot of people. There are some people, who are managing the businesses, most businesses. Now, suddenly, those guys are used to throwing their requirements over the wall to you, to IT. Yeah, just ask what they want. They get some of it they don't get. They are used to that. Now, suddenly you come and you say, okay, now we want this product owner, it has to come from business. So give us this a person from your side. Business has limited capacity. So what they do, they say, okay, take this person, but he's already doing something in business, but he will be available for 25% of the time. You can have that person. The person doesn't understand the role, probably doesn't know. Yeah. And he thinks, okay, maybe, or she thinks maybe this is something I can help, it can help me. They accept it. But once they get the training and they start working into it, they realize it is a real lot of work, right? And there is no time for that because they also have a day job. And you also need to understand that many times the way, because if you start, suppose something somewhere in March, I'm just giving you an example from our Netherlands cycle, which is January to December. In India, it's different for different companies. You start as working as a Scrum Master in March, right? Now your boss also doesn't understand Scrum Master, product owner role. You start as a product owner. Your boss also doesn't know what product ownership is, how to measure the success of product ownership. So you have some KPIs, yeah, which might not be directly related to your part-time job as a product owner. So what do? Your focus is still the KPIs which you got, which are more to do with your business responsibilities, right? And now suddenly you have this part-time job, which is actually taking a lot more time than what you thought it will take, right? So if you are faced with this situation, the permanent solution is to get more capacity. But I understand business capacity is not something which you can get on demand. This is not something on cloud that you click a button and you get more capacity. These capacities are built over a period of time. The business expertise doesn't come easily. So people who are doing this, they are doing this job for years. They can't be replicated very easily. So your best bet is to take out the operational part of the role away from the product owner. Yeah, so that they can devote more time in that strategic part of the role. Maybe looking at the priorities, yeah, answering your questions about the product, because that is only they could do. Nobody else could do it. But if you're talking about writing the stories, yeah, maybe writing acceptance criterias, putting stuff in some tool, because if you are using some tool, Jira, Rally, whatever, that can easily be actually taken over by somebody else. The product owner doesn't have to do that. Yeah, they are still responsible. We all know the Scrum theory, they are still responsible. All that is okay. But it can be done by others. You can chip in there as a team. You can relieve the product owner of this work. Yeah, take over the responsibility of managing the tool, writing the acceptance criteria, and then maybe get it reviewed by the product owner later that you understood it correctly, and free up capacity of the product owner. At the same time, the parallel job is to basically tell the business that that they really need to have capacity. I will tell you, I was working for a German bank a few years back. I was working in Frankfurt, and it was a new transformation. So I was hired as one of the first coaches, to guide the transformation. And it was a top-down transformation. That means the trigger came from the top. And then it was kind of dictated by the top guys that, okay, we need to do this. It's important and all. And then the business was asked, okay, give some people. Product owners had to be from business. Then I met one. I was part of one particular program. I was coaching them, and they had one product owner. You won't believe it. I didn't see the product owner for months. The product owner was never there, not in any meeting, not in anything. And then I got a bit pissed, and I said, okay, I want to see this guy, who this person is. I got the address because he was in some other office. Physically, also, he was sitting like 20 kilometers away. Okay. I went to his office, I met him. And then he explained to me. He said, I'm the product owner of two programs, not two teams, two programs. Okay. So there are 100 people who I am product owner of. And he said, they asked a lot of me. I know they're struggling and I really feel for them. But he said, you tell me, my boss likes the other program more than this program. And he told me, his boss, that the other program is more important and you will be judged on the success of the other program. And he said, now, if this is what my boss tells me, you know where my time will go, which is anyway limited. I am only 50% doing this role. So most of my time is spent with that team because that is the priority. Then I went to his boss. Yeah. I told him, I said, you think this is not important, but this is also important, because that was more what you call it, kind of a plumbing kind of a team, which was the base of the banking operations. I said, okay, if you ignore these people, nothing you want from the other team will ever get delivered, because without these guys, nothing gets done. And it is not, see, that his boss didn't really understood that his simple prioritization will have such a lasting impact on the success of his program. Ultimately, The result he wanted also include some part from the program I was coaching, right? He casually told this guy, okay, this is more important than that. But it had a lot of impact because people have to choose. And they will always choose what suits them or what gives them, more output or maybe better appraisals. That's very human. So it was mostly, it is about communication. Mostly it's about dialogue. So if you are stuck, don't accept it as is. Of course, you can do some things, as I said, try to free up the time of the product owner. Operational task you can take over. Yeah, only use the product owner's time for strategic work and for getting your queries answered. But also fight for more time. Don't just give up because, yeah, after a while, because you will find a steady state, when many of the responsibilities you will somehow manage, but don't be happy with somehow. You have to, as I, don't forget what I said before.
True.
If nobody is really pissed with you, you are not doing enough. You have to stretch things to a point where people are a little bit pissed with you, not too much. Otherwise, they will throw you out. You don't want that also.
Okay, great. And I was also thinking like if we have healthy product backlog. When I say healthy product backlog means like if we have, let's say, for 3 to 4 sprints, if we have a good product backlog with us, right? So maybe if
Mhm.
1 or 2 times this product owner is not available, maybe that's not going to impact us a lot if we already have a ordered or prioritized product backlog,
Yeah,
So
that is
maybe
true. That is true.
it's a
Sorry, that part I didn't answer, and I apologize. Actually, that part you can actually also address it structurally, and that is not sometimes even to do with the product owner's availability, because we it's very human, even for good product owners, to always prioritize current value over future value. Yeah, because the famous psychological studies, you tell someone you get 1,000 rupees now or 1,000 euros now and 5,000 euros after 6 months. Yeah, 80% people choose 1,000 euros now. That's, yeah, that's it has also has a name, but that's very human nature, that we want instant gratification. That's what it is called. So it's very human. So you can again, whenever we are faced with such issues, right, we should always try to get a structural solution, that what can we do structurally so that you get solution consistently, not only, then it should not be too much dependent on people's moods and their choices. Not too much, of course. You still need choices to be made, and one way to do it is, of course, Kanban. You can use Kanban very effectively in Scrum. Yeah, and of course, Scrum.org is has a beautiful course on that. But you can use Kanban principles and also create a Kanban board for your backlog refinement process, right? And there you can already have a healthy work in progress limits. You already have some targets, how many items you want to be in the ready state, so-called ready state. Yeah. And then once you have that, then everything is visible. Your product owner knows that for a healthy backlog, suppose your velocities or your throughput is suppose 4 stories, you need to have maybe 12 or 16. Yeah, depending, you can make your own choices. You say, okay, I need to have at least 12 good stories to be picked up. And then once it's not 12, it is only 5, everybody sees it, right? Including your product owner. And then it's also your job as a scrum master or as a coach to every now and then show the picture to your product owner. You don't have to say much, believe me. Even if you just tell people, show people these numbers, they get the clue. You tell them once and show them every day, and you will get the results you want. Because once things are visible, they are in front of their eyes, then the product owner will know, oh, it's only 5, I need to have 12, that's my target, I need to spend more time in the refinement. And immediately you will get more attention, from the product owner for the refinement activity. So it's about, the combination of this. But I think getting things visible, reminding people about things on a regular basis. So repetition is really undervalued. I will say this. Repetition has a lot of power. And as agile coaches, scrum masters, you should use the power of repetition. Tell people
great.
same thing again and again. They will get pissed with you, but believe me, after a while, they will act on it. So just maybe every day, every couple of days, show this, guys. How are we doing for our backlog health? Yeah, yes, these are our target numbers. Where are we? Don't say we are behind or ahead. People get the message. And those are the techniques you have. You know that as a Scrum professional, your biggest and the most powerful tool you have is to ask questions. And you can actually ask the same questions again and again. Sometimes it has more power. Instead of asking it once, ask it again and again and again until you get the result.
Great. Wonderful, Hemant. Great. Uh, let's move on with this. Okay, so the next one is a specific team, a particular Scrum team is delivering on time, but that the quality of that product is not that great, you know, and the
Mhm.
product owner is arguing that the speed is important for for success of the product for this particular project. So how do you address this trade-off between the speed and the quality? Because he is not spending much time on the quality thing. He just want to deliver. That's it. But then we know, like it's in the future is going to impact us. So how do you address this kind of concern?
Yeah. Um, it's a good question, and it's also as something which happens quite often that people get kind of carried away with speed. There are multiple reasons. One reason is also comparison. Yeah. So maybe there are two, three teams in the organization, and maybe you are doing a superb job and really delivering top quality code or top quality product. Somebody else is doing maybe a little bit less, delivering 30% more. But many times the good quality is only appreciated after a while. Once it hits the production and people start complaining about it, then only people will know, okay, this is not that great. And maybe they will understand. But maybe by that time you already have too much criticism, which you don't want. There are also other factors like people get stressed. Your management can also be under stress, yeah, from people. And within Scrum framework, there are already answers to the question. As we know, yeah, one of the important aspect of the framework is definition of done. You can have a very good definition of done, enforce it, and this problem should not be there. But what happens? Practical problems are there. I will tell you with a good example which happened with me many years back. I was working with a company in UK, and we had this definition of done we created, and of course it had all these stuff. And the company I was working with, they had a vision that they wanted to have a good automation test suite. So they also insisted, and they got added a line that wherever possible or wherever necessary, testing should be automated, test cases should be automated. It was part of the definition of done. Team was new, people started doing stuff, and what happened was this test automation was taking more time. And the reason was simple, because people were not that much skilled in automation. So every team had some training, they knew what to do, but they didn't have the experience. So it was taking more than usual time. It was slower process. And of course, that means that the velocity went down, and the management team already had some calculations. They thought, okay, the team will deliver whatever 100 points per sprint, and we have a 600 point backlog, 6 months. Yeah, we'll be done. We'll have the first release. But instead of 100, the velocity was 70. I don't remember exact numbers, but suppose 30% less than what they expected it to be. So what they did, because the management team started asking question to the delivery director, who was the head of the delivery for that product. They started asking him, what's the problem? We decided, or we decided, of course, in quotes, that the team should have 100 as velocity, and you promised. Yeah, because somewhere, if you say that maybe we can deliver 100, that becomes a promise. You know how in corporate things work. So they said, okay, this is less and this will have an impact on our budgets. You fix it. And the guy was a good guy, but he came to us, to all of our coaches, and he said, guys, this is a problem. I'm getting real pushback from the management. We had to somehow improve our velocity. Improve, yeah, that's those are all, if you hear this, those are already red signs, huh? But I didn't, I was not naive, I will say. We listened to the person and we came under pressure and we accepted his advice. And his advice was to remove the requirement of automation from definition of done. He said, okay, let us remove automation. People can still do it, he said. Yeah, only we are if you have the expertise, you have the competence, finish it within time, no problem, do the automation. If you are thinking that you are going below the target velocity of 10, then maybe, yeah, you can skip the automation. And he said, we will later on, we will see, what to do about the automation part. I said, okay. And we went with it. And of course, the automation then became optional. And then the teams, we told teams, guys, do your best, do automation wherever you could do. But we have this kind of expectation from the management that this much should be done. And then people just, went with it. After a while, we kind of, it fades, because, this agile is a very fast paced process. So after a while, everybody kind of forgot about it. The velocity went up, everybody was happy. Nothing actually hit production yet, because it was initial sprints, we were still building the basic stuff, the product was not ready. Then what happened was, after 4 months, they again, because the velocity was constant and good, then they again, remember this automation promise they made to themselves, that we will do more automation. So okay, let us do an audit and find out how much automation we missed, because now it's not part of the definition of done. And they did audit. You can imagine how much automation was missed. Yeah, as you can imagine, I'm pretty sure in those who work in industry, you can imagine it was 100% missed.
Completely.
Nobody bothered to touch it once it was out of definition of done. They just forgot about it, because instant gratification. If you could do 12 instead of 10 and get some more, pat on the back, why not? Who wants to do automation? It's not even in the definition of done. Got rid of it. And of course, it was their one of the aims to have more automation. So what they did, then they hired more people, more experts. Then they created another project to to do all the past automation, and they also added more capacity to the teams. I know it's not ideal, but somebody who was an expert. Every team got one expert guy in automation, or girl, right? And then the automation, they said, okay, don't push it, don't miss it anymore. Again, include it in definition of done. And all for the past work, we have this project team, they will take care of it. So the message is, we already have a very good tool to control quality. That is, yeah, definition of done. Use it. And if people resist it, yeah, you have to sometimes just put your foot down and say, no, guys, we need to do this. Also, it always helps, because it's very easy for us agile coaches to give this, yeah, this advice to people, put your foot down, and yeah, it's easy for us. The person who is on the ground, sometimes it's very difficult to resist. If you are a customer, or your director is telling you to do something, you will find it hard to say no. Yeah, it's very human, and I understand it. The best thing is, try to find allies who actually think like you. So sometimes you have to basically, yeah, you have to buckle under pressure and give them what they want. But there will be opportunities when you can actually get something back, right? There is always negotiation. There is never a black and white environment. So there is always this scope for to negotiate. And as an agile leader, as an agile practitioner, you have to learn to seize the opportunity when there is scope for negotiation. So if you want to do, yeah, you want to do integration test, and you also want to do security test, maybe security test is not possible. Maybe it's too expensive, or it's too time consuming, but at least try to get something. Yeah. If you are Giving something, get something back. You have to learn to negotiate because this is a dynamic environment and there will always be pressures from multiple places. You can't show people book. People generally don't care about the book, but they do care about quality because ultimately bad quality will hurt everyone, right? So if you could first, find these negotiating spots, negotiate with people, negotiate with your stakeholders, make some, find some allies who can help you, and you can always find allies at all levels. Maybe senior VP might be your ally. When the director doesn't want to do it, you might get somebody else as your ally. Find allies, work with them, and negotiate. Try to get as much as you want, as much as you can from this negotiation. That's the way. There is no one single answer. There is no one line in the book or one line in the Scrum guide which can solve your problem. This is a continuous process where you have to negotiate, you have to talk to people, communicate. But the good thing is, and the important thing is, if you can't do much or you can't get away with it, sometimes it's just not possible. Pressure is too much. Even then, you should tell people that, guys, what we are doing is not right. Maybe now we are giving in, but the best thing is, to have a better quality with by doing these X, Y, and Z steps. So remember, what we are doing is going to, hurt us. It's going to give us pain. Don't do stuff which you don't want to do without fight. And then you maybe after a few months you can get some control back. That's how it actually works everywhere.
True. Wonderful, Hemanth, for that explanation. Great. Okay, so let's move on. And looks like this is going to be the last question for this session. So maybe we will have more session in future. So the
Maybe,
so
yeah.
the so the question is, the developers believe that the sprint goal is unrealistic,
Mhm.
but the product owner is resistant about keeping it unchanged. So how do you work with this kind of conflict, and how do you ensure a collaborative approach towards achieving the sprint goal? So yeah, it's a tricky, messy situation. So how we are going to tackle it as a Scrum Master?
Yeah, I think again, as what I said before, I think is also applicable here. Uh, Sometimes there are different kinds of dynamics between a product owner and a team, and you will see, or those of you, many of you have are experienced people, you can also relate to it. The best outcome you get when your product owner is or really on your team. Yeah, when the product owner thinks with you, considers you or him or herself part of the team, right? You will get more troubles and less success when the product owner thinks you as, a other party, or he or she doesn't consider themselves as part of the team. Then you don't get that much success. But this requires trust. People generally are skeptical many times. Means I think I can't generalize, but many people are skeptical about new relationships, about a new team, or sometimes they think, okay, are these people taking me for a ride? Maybe they are telling me too much effort. All those kind of things are running in people's mind, and that's why sometimes they will ask you for to do more in less time. There is stress. All that kind of things can happen. So if your product owner is asking you to do more than what is possible, ask the product owner what is more important within that goal. Goal can also be have multi-layered, right? So it can be maybe three different functionalities which the product owner wants to do it under one particular goal. Best thing is try to demystify these layers. That what exactly the product owner wants. What are the sequence of priorities? Even though the goal might be a one line, there might be still different layers within that. Try to find out what layers are more important to the product owner. And also when you are working, try to finish the things which are more important, yeah, earlier. Because again, I was telling you sometimes back about the use of Kanban. I think the Scrum teams can greatly benefit by using Kanban principles within their daily working. Within the sprint also, If you try to finish stuff before starting something new, try to get something valuable out, try to at least get your goal, partially fulfilled as you go, right? So that the value is shown. And then your product owner after a while will realize, because see, again, coming back to what I said before, show stuff. Don't just say it, show it. So every sprint or after every day, after every 2 days, you can say, okay, we said we will do 10 stories. How many have we done? Zero, probably. How many have we done after 4 days? Maybe one. After 6 days, maybe two, three, you can show the progress. And then at the end, of course, if it's too much, then and you already had the sense that it won't be done, probably out of 10, you could do only 6, and the goal is also not met. But you still tried your best to at least give the core value what the goal was supposed to deliver. Some of it was delivered. Maybe the goal is still failing, but some value is still created, right? Because the product owner also needs to show value to his or her stakeholders. So your only way, because there is no one line answer to this. You can't really do or give a magic spell and suddenly your product owner will agree with you. Probably that won't happen. If some people always try to push you, that's in their nature. But your best approach is try to find layers, deliver a part of that layer which you think is most valuable, because many times the product owner themselves can't do this layering for on their own. They don't know this because they can't think like that. You compel them to think like that. Find the association with between the stories and this value which they want to create. Use principles of Kanban. Don't try to do everything at once and create half stories, all of it. Try to finish stuff, create part of the value what the product owner is expecting, and gain the trust of the product owner. The best way to gain trust is by delivering value. If you start delivering value, believe me, your product owner will slowly believe you in what you are saying. Yeah, because once they see it that these guys told me, and still they tried their best to at least give me some value which I can showcase to my stakeholders and make them happy. Next time you will have better the product owner is in a better situation to appreciate what you are telling him or her. And that's the way to go forward. There is no one stop solution, but you have to work towards the solution. Because if this is happening with you for sprint after sprint after sprint, I think you are up for a lot of surprises and a very distressed team who is not enjoying what they are doing. So as a scrum master, you need to intervene and take your product owner to a better place. That's how I think I will manage it.
Wonderful, wonderful explanation, Hemant. Thank you for that. Okay, so I think we are good for today, Hemant. So thank you, and thank you, friends, for joining us today. And we hope you found this session helpful and informative. So if you enjoy this session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in next session very soon. So bye, guys. Thank you, Hemant, one more time.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye,
Thank
guys.
you.